Good evening, everybody. Today's Tuesday, which means that it's time for another live Q&A all about eBay and Amazon dropshipping. If you guys are here live, make sure to ask questions inside the live chat. I'll be monitoring that, answering any questions you guys have there. And if you're watching this on replay, leave your questions in the comment sections of any of my videos, and I'll answer them either right away or next week during my next live Q&A. I do them every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, so if you don't want to miss it, make sure to subscribe. And make sure you show up next week for the next one. So the first thing I want to talk about a little bit is what my plans are for the rest of the year. It's now the beginning of September. We are moving into Q4. This is when things get really serious and really crazy. So we do want to make sure that we have a solid plan in place. So I'm just going to begin to talk about that tonight and what really my plans are for the rest of the year. So 2017 Q4 was insane for me. It was my first Q4. I was a little bit unprepared for it. Wasn't expecting the volume in sales that I got. It was awesome, really amazing, and I learned a lot from that. And then coming out from that, I spent a lot of this year focusing a lot on teaching other people about eBay dropshipping. I've had my course up since January now. A lot of students who have gone through that. But I haven't neglected my eBay store, but I haven't put as much attention into it as I would have liked. So now this month, that's really a big focus of mine, is to grow my eBay dropshipping business and really get it ready for Q4. In addition to that, we are building out our Amazon store as well, our Amazon dropshipping business, and really focusing on growing that at a steady, healthy rate. And the great thing about this is that I've been doing Amazon for a few months now, and during that time period, I've been moving up very slowly with it because I've been pretty busy, but now I have some help. It's working a lot better, and we're scaling a lot faster now. And the great thing is that I'm now able to learn from my past mistakes with my eBay dropshipping business. So I'm putting the right foundation in with my Amazon dropshipping business right from the start. Yes, there's a lot of differences between eBay and Amazon, but there are a lot of things that are also the same. And I'm able to make sure that I don't make a lot of the same mistakes that I made on eBay with Amazon, which is really great, knowing that the foundation on my Amazon store is going to be really solid moving into Q4. And I think it's going to make a big difference for the sustainability and growth of this Amazon store as well. But let's talk a little bit more about eBay and what I'm doing with that. So one of the things I'm doing is, besides pushing to add a lot more products into my store from the sources that I regularly use, like Amazon, Walmart, and Home Depot being the biggest ones, I've opened back up a second store that I haven't really been using for a few months, and I'm experimenting with some other sources in that store. This is just experimenting right now, so I gotta make sure they actually work, but I'm so far seeing some pretty good results, so I'm pretty excited by it. And in order to do that, because the software that I normally use, DSM tool, doesn't work with these other sources, I am experimenting with a couple of other repricing tools. Now, what am I talking about here for any of you who are unfamiliar? Well, DSM tool is the software that I use to list my items onto eBay, and it automatically reprices them if the price goes up on Home Depot or Walmart, and it also changes stock accordingly. But DSM tool doesn't work with every supplier. It works with a few of the main ones. So I'm trying out ones that do work with the sources that I'm experimenting with right now. So it's great that I'm getting to try these new sources, these other online retail websites, and it's great that I'm getting to try these other repricing tools. And what I learn, of course, I'll bring back to you guys as soon as I figure out what's working for me and what isn't. So I'm really hoping to have a solid foundation in this new store going into Q4, along with more items into my main store then as well, along with also Amazon as well. So another thing I want to do before the end of the year is host a meetup. And I mentioned this before, but I think I've locked down a date, which will be September 22nd here in New York City. I don't have the exact location yet, because that really depends on how many people are going to be able to make it out for that. It's going to be in Manhattan. So if you are interested, it's on September 22nd. And the first link in the description of this video is a place where you can sign up just to let me know if you're interested. And if you really think it's possible, you're going to be able to make it. It's totally free. You don't have to be a student of the Dropshipping Titans course in order to come. Anyone is welcome. Anyone, even if you've never started eBay dropshipping, you're just interested, come. If you're in the area, I would love to meet you and love to hang out with you. Basically, what it's going to be is mostly just a chance for us to meet you, me, and everyone else in the community who's able to make it out, just to connect with each other in person and to hopefully form some like relationships, some business relationships, and maybe even like some mini masterminds between some of the people that come. I've been to events like this for other things that I've done, and I'll say that the connections that you form when you meet someone in person is much better than when you meet someone online. It's a really cool experience. So I'm hoping that a bunch of you guys can come out. I will be sharing some information during that live event. It's not going to be like a big event with like speakers and all of that. So I wouldn't fly like across the country to make it. And I probably will be recording it. I'm not positive if that's going to be something I definitely do and definitely release on YouTube, but it is a possibility. But if you are in the area around September 22nd and you want to make it out for that, make sure you do sign up. That way I get an accurate head count so I can determine what kind of venue I'm able to have this in. So I know a lot of you do live in New York, so it'd be great if you guys can make it on September 22nd. Yeah, so I will be talking about some of the things during that I've been trying for Q4 during that meetup in September. So I have been getting a lot of questions about the last video I made, which was all about Banggood. And spoiler alert, this is one of the sources that I've been trying to build up in my new eBay store in order to have a solid foundation down for Q4. And I have been getting a lot of questions. So one of my viewers, his name is Branch Out, he said, so far, Banggood, it seems difficult to copy the photos over from the Banggood website onto eBay. How do you do this? So I'm actually using a lister specifically for this. I know Banggood kind of has something built in to make this work. I play with it a little bit, but I didn't waste too much time because I know that there's listers that do this for you pretty automatically. So I wanted to make sure that I just started using one right away. There's two that I know of, and I am looking at both of them, but I'll obviously talk more about that when I get a really great chance to try out both of them and see which one works out the best for me. Anne's Fight also had a question about it. So the great thing about Banggood is that they do have a drop ship program. They actually encourage drop shipping. So Anne's Fight said that she didn't use the dropship program. She just bought the item from Banggood and shipped it to the customer. She's worried now that the customer will find an invoice with it. Well, if you check out that video that I did about Banggood last week, and if you're watching this on replay, I'll try to put a link up here that shows where that video is. But the one item I received, I didn't use the dropship program, and it did not have an invoice inside it. The second item, the same thing, but it did have an invoice inside it. So I think it's pretty hit or miss with this. One thing I do know, or what I've been told, is that if you use the dropship program, there's going to be no invoice included. And the dropship program is really easy to sign up for as well. I also got some great tips from Modestas Urbellis, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. And the tip is not to sell electronic items because they're a pain to have to refund a broken electronic. And in his personal experience, many items that he sells that are electronics come broken or there's problems with them. So in that video, if you watched it, you saw I bought a mini drone, had it shipped to my own house, kind of played around with it. But the first one I ordered was broken. But this person's saying that, yeah, a lot of those little electronic things come broken. They're kind of a pain. So you might want to consider drop shipping items that don't contain parts like that. So let's see. See if any questions. Okay. Mandala Kitten says, I'm really nervous for my first Q4. When does it start getting a bit crazy with orders? I get about 10 orders a day. So I don't think this is something, well, I think it's fair that you're nervous about this, but you should also be excited about this opportunity. And sales begin to really pick up in the middle of November. And certainly by the end of November, they really start to pick up when you're talking about Christmas items. So the best plan is just to have a solid foundation in place now. So create systems that work. That's the best advice I can give you. So if you're doing a lot by yourself, create or write down every step that you do and make sure it's very systematic. And I encourage you to consider hiring a virtual assistant. Even if you don't think you're going to need a VA all year long, it's a pretty good idea to have them specifically for Q4 and maybe even start training them now just to help you on a part-time basis. You see this all the time in big box stores. You'll see people saying, oh, we need seasonal help to help us. That's very common. And I'll tell you something, I hired 2 additional VAs moving into Q4 last year, specifically hired them just as seasonal help. And they're still with me today because the momentum kept going even after Q4. So I was able to make sure that they continue to get work from me. So I was mentioning before that because I'm trying these other sources that DSM doesn't work with, I am trying other alternatives to DSM tool. There's a lot of them out there, and I can't really give a fair assessment of anything until I've tried it for a while. So I will be trying these other ones and letting you guys know what I think of them, giving my fair, honest feedback on them. So I know a lot of people had questions about that, so I'll let you know. Okay, and Kong C says that he's using Dropship Beast for listing on the Banggood. Yeah, that's one of the ones I'm looking at. I'll tell you right now, the 2 that I'm looking at specifically for Banggood are Dropship Beast and Auto DS Tool. And I jumped on Auto DS Tool first. It just happened to be the first one I used. Specifically because I actually got to meet the owners of Auto DS Tool when he was in New York City, and one of the other owners is here all the time. So I got to hang out with them for a few hours a couple of weeks ago. They're really great guys. And they kind of convinced me to really try Banggood because I had made the video about it and was thinking, I don't know if I want to do it. And then they kind of talked me into it. So I started using their software specifically for Banggood. So I'll be giving that a shot and letting you guys know exactly what I think of both Banggood and those different softwares once I learn more. Okay. Okay, let's see another question I had from this week. IT administrator is his name. He said, Lipsky, do you ship Home Depot items worldwide? How do they send items to outside the US? Yeah, I do that. So the way that works is through eBay's global shipping program. That is a program where let me move over some more in the center here. That is a program where you ship the item to eBay's headquarters in Kentucky, and then eBay forwards the item to the customer. No extra cost to you. It does cost the buyer a little extra, but they are aware of that because they are overseas. Anyone who shops on eBay a lot will know about that if they're overseas. So I think another one of my students, Nandita, had a similar question off of that, asking, how do you track GSP shipments? GSP standing for Global Shipping Program. So GSP orders actually have 2 tracking numbers. The first one is the one that you put into eBay when the item ships from you and is sent to eBay's headquarters in Erlanger, Kentucky. Now, when that happens, you're just going to give the UPS or FedEx tracking number, whatever it is. So that's one of them. And you just track that the normal way by going into FedEx or UPS website. Then once eBay gets it, they assign it their own tracking number, and then they ship it overseas to the customer. At that point, it's out of your hands. As long as it's delivered to eBay's GSP facility in Erlanger, Kentucky, you're off the hook. So it doesn't even matter. You don't even have to track the other tracking number. It really doesn't matter. As long as you deliver it to eBay in Kentucky, you're fine. Okay. Monica Lewis is asking if I have decided on a dropshipping software for Amazon yet. No, we have not. We're experimenting with a few different ones, but I'll let you guys know. And Kevin wants to know specifically to Amazon, do we use the same method on Amazon as we do on eBay? And not really, to be honest. It is different, especially the product research is different, and a lot of the pricing strategy has to be a lot different as well as really the customer service has to be different. Things with returns have to be different. So there's a lot of different aspects to Amazon than there are to eBay. Definitely some things can be transferred over. We're using a lot of the same sources. Specifically, Walmart's doing really well. And we also, just in general, I guess you could say good customer service works on both, although with Amazon, it's definitely a lot more strict. And hiring and training virtual assistants, just the process of hiring VAs and the outsourcing of the work is similar, although it's obviously different tasks and different ways to do them. Okay. So Esra Tarek says, how many listings do you have now? And do I suggest using multiple accounts or just one? So this is actually a question that I never answer on purpose. And the reason I never answer it is because I am putting myself out here, answering people's questions about eBay, showing people the back end of my eBay account, blurring out all the sensitive information so that you can't see what my account is. Actually created a whole fake account that I use just for teaching. And the reason for that is because it's so easy. If anyone sees that I'm doing well on eBay, they can go and they figure out what my store is. They can go and just snipe all my products. And I don't want that to happen because that would just stink. I don't want that to happen. So that's why I hide certain information from people, specifically my store name, and also things that would make it very easy to identify my store, such as how many listings I have, for instance. So that's just the reason why I don't share that. But I will say that I do have multiple stores, and I don't think you need that for a while, but after some time, it is a strategy to have multiple accounts. And some of the reasons you might want to do this. Well, one reason is if you are using just one source for your store and it's doing really well, and you want to try another source, you might consider opening a second store just for that. It will help keep things a little bit more organized. Do you absolutely need that? No, not at all. If you're using a repricing tool like the ones I mentioned before, it'll keep track of the source for you. Now, for me specifically, I create a second store because I am experimenting with that second store, using sources that I'm not sure if they're the most dropship friendly. So trying them out, and using software that I'm not using with my first store because the sources that I'm using don't work with the repricer that I'm using on my main store. So those are reasons why you might want to start a second account, but it will probably is not something that you really need right away, I would say. So D Victoria is asking about startup capital. And I'm not sure if you're talking about eBay or Amazon, so I'll kind of address it for both. So with eBay, the startup capital is actually pretty low. I've made a video about this in the past, and if I remember, I'll link it up right up here later on. But the reason for that's so low is because you don't really have to pay for a subscription of those. A really good idea to do it, but the first one is pretty cheap, and it doesn't cost money to actually start listing because you generally get about 50 listings for free every time you sign up for an eBay account. In addition, if you use a listing software like DSM Tool, you're going to get 50 free listings just for signing up. So the cost is really low. The one thing that's going to hold you back a little bit is PayPal jail, is what we call. So that's when it's a probation period for 3 months when you are on PayPal, when you start using PayPal, and they're going to hold your funds until the item has been marked as delivered. Then they'll release the funds a couple of business days later. So during that time, you need enough money to buy the item from your source, like Walmart, and have it shipped to your customer until PayPal releases the money to you. Now, once they release the money, you're fine. So it's just for a small period of time when that happens. For Amazon, the startup costs are in a way are higher. Now you do have to pay, you should pay for a I forget what it's called, a subscription on Amazon, which if I remember right, it's definitely less than 50. I think it's $39.99, if I'm not mistaken, to sign up for Amazon. The great thing about that is there's no insertion fees. You can list as many items as you want. The problem though is that the fees are a little bit higher, and they will hold your funds for pretty much 2 weeks. They release your money twice a month. So you always need enough money to float you until they release your money. Now, there are some ways around that, which we are considering, and of course, we'll talk about that if that works out for us. So those are really the startup costs, so to speak. And of course, with Amazon, you'll probably want software as well, which we'll talk more about in another video. Okay, so some questions about virtual assistants here. Thomas has a good one. Do your VAs have access to and use your Chili Hunter or Zeek account for listings? So Chili Hunter and Zeek Analytics are two softwares that help you list items help you find items to list onto eBay. And the great thing, the one that I use is Chili Hunter. I think Chili Hunter and Zeek Analytics are both great. The reason I use Chili Hunter is because I signed up for a whole year up front, and because it gave me that option, I just did it. So that's the reason I use that one. And you can give VA access to Chili Hunter. So that's what I've done. And Mr. Lestrange has a question about VAs. If the virtual assistants know how to do all the work, what is stopping them from doing it themselves? Well, this is a lot of things. And one of the things is because most people first of all, most of these VAs are from the Philippines or from India. And for them, it's actually much more difficult for them to get started selling on eBay US than it would be for people who live in the United States or even people who live in Europe or the Middle East. It's just much more difficult. And you need like bank accounts, credit cards, all these things that would be a hurdle for them to do it. Can they do it? Yeah, I'm sure they could, but you just don't see it as often. Another reason is because they've gone onto websites like Online Jobs, which is the one that I recommend for hiring, training virtual assistants, because they don't want to work for themselves, so to speak. They want to be hired by someone else, and they kind of want to get the paycheck. That's all some people want. All they want is a paycheck. They don't want to be entrepreneurs, and they're happy with that. So that is what these employees or virtual assistants are looking for. So that's what they're going to do. And Sea Monkeys is saying, when you're opening an additional eBay store, do you need a separate tax ID number or use the same one? You can use the same one. The only new thing you need is a new email address. You can use all the same information. You'll obviously have to create a new eBay account with a new eBay username, but the only thing you need to do that is a new email. You can even use the same PayPal. So one of my students had a question. So he said, if I hire virtual assistants, when do they work? Do they work at what is the daytime in the US or the nighttime in the US? So they're on opposite schedules. So if it's daytime here, it's nighttime there. And if it's nighttime here, it's daytime there. So for me, I let them work during what would be normal hours for them. So they start working after I go to sleep. Pretty much there's a couple that wake up early and I start talking to them like right before I go to sleep if there's any problems, which rarely happens at that time. And then when I wake up, one of them reports to me, lets me know what's going on, addresses any issues when they happen. Usually I don't really hear from them too often though. A couple of them stay up really late and I'll be talking to them in like the middle of the day for me, which is about midnight for them, but that's a schedule they like. They say they like to stay up late. So if they're happy, I'm happy. For the most part, most of the tasks they do are pretty flexible. The only thing I'm pretty strict with is all customer questions have to be answered within 24 hours and all orders have to be, the people who place the orders, I'm pretty strict with them. You have to order the items between this time and this time. They have to get done because you do have to get those items out and ordered in case any stock changes happen on the source's website. But other than that, things like listing, even some customer service, I'm pretty flexible. I let them set their own schedule as long as they get the work done. Okay, so David Ray says, hey, Paul, got your course, great info. I started to get a lot of unpaid items / awaiting payment items on my account. Buyers almost never paid for these. What is your experience with these types of cases? So these are a pain, especially in the beginning. Because you'll be so excited, you get a sale, and then they never pay for the item. Like, I don't get it, personally. But so you can set up with eBay what's called an unpaid item assistant. What that's going to do is it's going to automatically open up an item unpaid item case against the buyer if they don't pay you. What's the benefit of that? Well, it reminds the buyer that they have to pay you, and sometimes they actually do. And if they don't pay, then it automatically closes the case and refunds you your final value fee. So believe it or not, this is another one of those things that eBay does that just makes me roll my eyes, is that, again, you can sell an item and not get paid for it right away. So you sell an item and then they have a few days to actually pay for it. You only ship it when they pay for it. You only ship it when you pay for it. So not when it sells, when it's paid for. I just lost my train of thought. Okay, but when it sells, not when it's paid for, when it sells, that's when eBay charges you the final value fee. And that just seems so stupid to me, but that's what happens. So it's not when it's paid, it's when it's sold. So you want to make sure that if you never actually paid, that you get that final value fee back, which is a benefit of the unpaid item assistant. Now, one thing you could do is you could change all your listings so that you require immediate payment. That means they can't buy the item unless they pay for it. That will prevent that from happening. Will you get some less sales that way? Maybe. I've never done like a split test on this, but I do leave it up to the buyer to decide when they want to pay. Is it a pain? Yeah, but I figure maybe it results in a few extra sales doing it that way. Okay, so Word Life says, why do you say avoid AliExpress? Can you explain? If I did say to avoid AliExpress, then I'm sorry, that might have been in the past or something else. But I said, what I meant to say is that I don't use AliExpress. I don't use it because most of those items are coming from China. And I don't want to put my buyers through a really long shipping time. I'd rather have the items shipped from a warehouse here in the United States. Now, I'm always challenging my beliefs. I'm going to look into it, AliExpress as a supplier, see if it works. Might not do it this year, but eventually I'm going to take a look at AliExpress and see if it is a good supplier. But that's the reason I have avoided it so far, is because the item's coming from China, and because I've always had this perception that the items are really cheap and aren't good quality. But I'm always willing to, challenge my own beliefs. So somebody named Don't Care said, is there a way to connect AliExpress or Walmart to your eBay account so that the whole process is automated? Someone buys on eBay and then it automatically gets ordered on AliExpress and Walmart. And there is a way. There's repricers that have auto ordering built into them. I don't have a full list of all of them, but I do know that DSM Tool has it. AutoDS Tool has it. Sales Freaks has it as well. And I know there are others as well. Those are just the three I can think of off the top of my head. And the reason I don't use those, though, is because I did a cost-benefit analysis of how many orders my VAs can place within an hour, how much these auto ordering cost. And I did see that the auto ordering was a little bit cheaper, but I like the idea of having the VAs do it manually, so there's a person there making sure that they're all done correctly. And the cost was so minimal, I'd rather give the work to an actual person that will benefit them. Not that, I am paying the software company, and these software companies are great, and it'd be great for them to make more money on it, but I'm thinking more about my virtual assistants in this case and want to give them work where it's available. So that's one of the reasons I've always kept it with the VAs. And I just have a good system in place with them ordering items. So I figure, why change the system if it's working fine? Okay. I also want to give a shout out to two people, Danielle and Nancy, who left really awesome reviews on my Facebook page for Dropshipping Titans. Danielle says, love the course. It is really detailed, practical, and it's information that other courses don't have, like how to choose products. Brilliant. So thank you for that review, Danielle. And Nancy says, Paul's course is wonderful. He explains by details how this works and how to make it work. If you follow what he says, you will succeed. Enjoy. So really, from the bottom of my heart, I really mean it. It's great to hear things like that. So I really appreciate it. And if anyone else wants to leave a review like that, it would be really awesome of you guys. So a big shout out to those two. Oh, and there's Nancy Ross actually leaving a $5 super chat. So thank you, Nancy. Double shout out tonight. So Nancy has actually a great question. I also thrift along with dropshipping. Can I put both items? Can I put them into one store? This is really up to you, Nancy. My inclination is to say to use different stores. Sorry, that's my dog if you hear him. My inclination is to say to use two different stores. And the reason for that is because your business policies, your shipping policies are going to be different for these different types of items. And maybe you're a top-rated seller in your thrifting store. It's not impossible to be top-rated seller with a dropshipping account, but it is difficult. So if you want to maintain that, it's probably a good idea to keep your thrifting business and your dropshipping business separate. Now, if you start a new store, you can call eBay and say, hey, eBay, I started this second store because I'm creating a new product line. If you look at my first account, it's doing really well. I have a high listing limit. Can I get an increase in my limit on my second store, my new store? And usually they'll give it to you without any problem. So Imran wants to know how I speak to my virtual assistants. Phone, message, email, chat. So the two main ways are, I have some VAs that I've hired through Upwork. And the place I recommend to hire VAs from is Online Jobs, and I have a link to that in the description. That is an affiliate link, but I recommend that one because it's the one that I use. It's really affordable. The reason I still have VAs from Upwork is because I hired them from before I knew about Online Jobs. So I'm not going to fire them just because it's cheaper to hire one through online jobs. I just don't think that's right. And I do use online jobs for more technical things, but that's primarily things outside of eBay dropshipping. Like the guy who edits my videos, I hired from Upwork, and he's great. But I talk to those VAs through Upwork's chat, and the other VAs I talk to through Skype. Let's see. Okay, so I had a question from someone saying, what is a good niche to start in eBay with? So with eBay, I wouldn't recommend picking a niche. I love eBay because you can really list any item that you want. You can stay out of any niche. And the great benefit of that is that, let's say you're listing kitchen appliances or little kitchen tools, and they're not selling for whatever reason. Well, then start listing some bedroom items or some toys or these different things. You can really test the market without, pigeonholing yourself into one niche, which is really a huge benefit of it over some other types of business ventures where you have to sometimes pick not only a niche, but also a specific product. And if that niche or even that product fails, then you kind of have to go all the way back to the beginning. But that's not the case with eBay. That's one of the reasons I love it. So Brian wants to know if I have a list of the softwares I use. And yeah, I have affiliate links I have a bunch of links to all the software I use underneath this video. Most of those are affiliate links. And what that means is that I'll get like a small commission if you go through that link. It's not very much. And I only recommend these products because I actually use them and like them myself. So the link to them is all underneath this video. It doesn't cost you anything extra to use them. I just get a small kickback if you do for recommending it. And so Giovanni's asking how much it costs to hire virtual assistants. And that really depends on where you hire them from. As I was saying before, what we're talking about. Online jobs is a little bit more expensive than, let's rewind that. Upwork is a little bit more expensive than online jobs, and that's because Upwork actually takes a percentage of all the money that you pay your virtual assistant. With online jobs, on the other hand, you actually have to pay a fee to use it. You get access to it for 30 days, and any VA you hire through that, you form a contractual relationship with them. Online jobs isn't involved. They don't take a cut of it. Now, most people don't want to pay that upfront cost to use online jobs, but in the long run, actually, in about a month, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be cheaper than hiring through Upwork, which is why I use online jobs. And most of those VAs are earning about $2 an hour if I hire them through online jobs. Okay. So another question here from Heather. Heather asked this question this week, said, let me grab some water. Heather says, and first of all, guys, if you're getting some value out of this, make sure to give it a thumbs up, the video. So Heather says, a year ago, I was going to go with Shopify. Even though I was already and had been on eBay, something about Shopify made me feel uncomfortable. I still don't know what it was. Now I guess how much you had to spend to get up and going. I don't know. I decided not to do it but that was a year ago. And it actually made me not dropship at all. So she stopped dropshipping on eBay as well. Now I feel like I lost a year, but I feel like I learned a lot in the past year. So I guess that was good. So my question for you, Heather, if you're watching this, or anyone else who's watching and hasn't really gotten started with anything they're looking at, and if you're here today watching this video, either live or on replay, that means that you, for some reason, are interested in eBay dropshipping. And maybe you're watching these videos, you've watched other ones, and something in your gut's telling you that this seems like a cool idea. This seems like something that would work for you. So my question is, for those of you who aren't getting started, like Heather maybe, why aren't you getting started? Now, from my experience talking to a lot of people who through YouTube, through Facebook, people emailing me, is that most people don't get started. And I was thinking a lot about this recently, why it is that people don't get started, because everyone's telling me the same thing, which is that they know it's going to be good for them. They know it could change their life. They can give them financial freedom, freedom to live life on their terms, but they just don't actually do it. And I was trying to figure out why that is. And I looked back on my own experiences, specifically when I was starting to get into e-commerce. I've tried Shopify stores. I've tried little niche affiliate websites. And there were other opportunities that I never jumped on and never did. And one of the reasons why I think in the past was I didn't get started, and I think a lot of other people don't get started, based on past experiences. So, for instance, I was hesitant to start eBay dropshipping because I'd failed at Shopify dropshipping in the past. Now, that's a kind of a silly way to think about it, because we've all heard the expression that success is built upon a mountain of failures. And I know it's very cliche to say, but it's really true. Most people fail a lot before they get successful. And I know that's true even for myself. But I think for more people, what the problem is that they don't get started today because they're so used to not getting started in the past. They look back on their life and say, well, I'm not really the type of person to do something like this. Yeah, this seems like a great idea, but it's just not me. Now, if you're really content with your life, and let's say you're working a 9-to-5 job and you like it, you're happy with your life, you go to work, you come home, you enjoying everything about it, then that's fine. But if you're using this as an excuse not to get started, that's really where the mistake could come in for some of you. So I would ask yourself, really get serious with yourself and say, am I really content with this? Am I not getting started because I just have never got started before, or is that what's happening here? So that's kind of the question I would ask yourself if I was you. And I think a lot of other people make a mistake, and the mistake they make in not getting started is because they haven't really figured out why they want to do it. They might look at eBay dropshipping and say, yeah, that looks awesome, great idea. But then they never really articulate why it seems like such a great idea for them. And that's really important. Why would you want to do this? What would this change about your life? And when you get that picture in your mind, that's really what would compel you and push you forward to really succeed with something like this. And one thing that I've read this study about people who were trying to quit smoking, and they asked the people why they wanted to quit smoking. And based on the answer, they split them into two groups. One group had people who wanted to quit smoking to improve their health, so that they could live longer, so that they could just stop smoking, or they didn't have to go outside all the time to grab a smoke. And the other group of people were trying to quit for someone else. So maybe they just got married and they didn't want to leave their spouse, and they were afraid that they were going to get sick and die and then leave their spouse behind. Or they had a kid and it's the same problem, or they didn't want to smoke around their kid, different things like that. So which of those two groups do you think had a higher success rate of quitting? It's the group that did it for someone else. And so what can we learn from this? Well, it's that if you have goals and you're trying to figure out a why for yourself, it's more likely, I believe, to be successful if you're doing it for someone else. And of course you want to do this for yourself, but you can bring someone into this. So if you have a partner, a spouse, a boyfriend or girlfriend, you might say, I want us to have a better life together, and get them involved with it. And that kind of brings me to another reason people don't really get started with things like eBay dropshipping, and that's because there's no real accountability for them. And I will put a little caveat right away, which is that when I first got started with eBay dropshipping, I didn't tell my family about it, and I didn't tell my close friends about it. The only people I told about it was my partner and people online. And the reason for that is because I think at the worst, some of my friends might have said, that's a stupid idea. It's just never going to work. There's so many people trying to make money online. You're just not going to be able to do it. And at the best, they would have said, okay, sure, Paul. Yeah, that's really going to work. And even though it's easy to say, yeah, I'll just ignore those people. If I had told my friends that, and they had said something like that, then as soon as I hit my first hurdle, as soon as I had my first failure, so to speak, with eBay dropshipping, that friend of mine would have gotten in my head, and I would have said to myself, you know what, they're right, this doesn't work, and I would have given up. So I tend not to tell those close people about things like this until I'm successful. So that when I say accountability, I think it's great to get into online forums, get into a mastermind, and meet up with someone who's willing to work with you, and you guys can check in with each other often to make sure that you are both executing on your goals. And I was part of a paid mastermind for a while, and I really felt like it was the best mastermind I was in, because everyone was paying money to be there, which means that every time that we showed up for the mastermind, everyone brought their A game. And it meant that everyone had skin in the game because they were paying to be in this mastermind, which kind of brings me to another reason people don't get started, is because they don't put enough skin in the game. They'll try to learn from everything online, from like free sources like YouTube, and then there's really no real incentive to get started with it, because they didn't spend anything on it, and they think, I've gotten this far without spending any money. I'm missing a few pieces, but if I buy this course, it's going to cost me money, or if I buy this software, it's going to cost me money. And then they just never put any skin in the game, so they never actually have a reason to get started. And I kind of experienced this myself when I first thought about creating my course, Dropshipping Titans. I was like, I just don't know if it's the right opportunity for me, if it's something I want to do, if it's going to work. But what I did was I signed up for some things online to help me host an online course. The website that I have my course hosted on, I bought new microphone equipment. At that point, I had spent money on it, so I had to do something. I had to at least do it so that it could make sense that I spent money on hosting the course and all this new equipment. So that's what I mean when I say putting your skin in the game. And I guess the last reason I think that people don't get started with something like eBay dropshipping is because people just think it doesn't matter to them. And for some people, like I said before, if you're really absolutely content with your life, then that's totally fine. But for other people, for a lot of you guys, if you're here, if you're watching this, there's a reason for that. There's something that's telling you that this is an opportunity that you are really interested in and that would have an impact on you. And it's very easy to say, I'm just not going to do it. Like, what does it matter? Well, that says something, that could say something about you. And you should really look into yourself and say, if I want this and I'm not doing it, what does that say about me and the type of person I am, and whether I'm really serious about going after opportunities that I know could change my life. So that's kind of everything I was thinking about when it comes to why people don't get started. And the final thing I'll say on it is, if you're open to new ideas, then why not just try it? You have no idea whether it could change your life or not. And I bet a lot of you have a real strong feeling in your gut that it would. And I'm always a strong believer in going with your gut. And I know you might feel like, Heather, I know you might feel like, I should have done this a year ago. I feel like I wasted so much time. But I think a lot of people have heard this old proverb that says something along the lines of, the best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago, and the second best time is today. So, it would have been so easy for me when I started eBay dropshipping to say, oh man, I wasted so many years. Like, so many people are so far ahead of me. But I didn't. I got started, and I'm so thankful that I did with that. So let me get some more questions here from people. So Rador54 says, hey guys, I got my first sale. So congratulations, Rador54 says, do I add my phone number on the order, or do I add the customer's phone number? So Rador54, what I would recommend is primarily you want to put the customer's phone number. And the reason for that is generally the people that are going to call you are the people who are delivering the item, like UPS or FedEx. They're probably going to call and say, hey, we can't deliver it. There's a missing house number, or there's some other problem. Chances are if someone calls, that's going to be the issue. You don't want them calling you because you can't really address that issue. You want them calling the customer in that matter. So that's why you should put the customer's phone number there. Okay. So Miko Lestrange says, can you talk about your VA program? I think I'm ready for it, but I'm not sure. Yeah, so the VA program is my course called Super Simple VAs. So you could check that out. The link to it in the description. Yeah, I have some great resources in the description. I have the sign up for the meetup if you're interested in that. I have a link to my free eBay dropshipping mini course, and also have a link to my my eBay Dropshipping Titans course if you're interested in that. And I have a link to the VA course, which is Super Simple VAs. Now, the Super Simple VAs is really designed to make it really easy to hire and train a virtual assistant. I take you through the whole process. I take you through what to look for, show you where to hire them from. And my very favorite thing about it is that you get access to a library of training material. So you send your VA a link to this library with the password, and they can go in and just watch all these training videos. So you don't have to make the training videos for them. It makes it really easy to hire a VA using that kind of system. So if you do buy the Dropshipping Titans course, you will have the option of adding on the virtual assistant course at a discount if anyone's interested in that as well. So we have a few more minutes here. So let's see if there's any more questions here. So Wordly says, Wordly Fee says, is there a price limit new dropshippers should stay below? We're going to list our first 50 items and wonder if we should stay below $75 per item. So that's a great question. And the general rule that I give, or I don't know if it's a rule, suggestion, is that the first few items you list should be on the cheaper side. And I generally say below $40 if possible. And the reason for that is those items are more likely to sell. Certainly more expensive items will sell, but not as frequently. And your goal in the beginning is to get more sales, to prove to eBay and PayPal and your customers that you are a reliable seller. And you can't sell a lot of $75 or more items if you don't have a lot of items in your store. So you want to just sell as many items as you can. The best way to do that is to sell cheaper items. Okay. To here. All right. So Diego wants to know, when's a good time to hire virtual assistants? So this is an interesting question, because in the past, I always said you shouldn't hire a virtual assistant right away. And I still believe that. I think it's really important for you to understand the whole system first. There's no sense in you hiring someone to do your work for you if you don't fully understand the work yourself, because how are you going to explain it to them if they have any questions? And how are you going to know if they're even doing it correctly or efficiently? That's why I really believe you got to know how to do it first. Then, when you get so busy doing a single task, like maybe it's placing orders or listing items, that you no longer have time to do important things like running your business, or scaling it, that's a good time to hire virtual assistants. Now, some people I know have a little bit more experience with running businesses, a little bit more willing to take a risk, and so they hire virtual assistants pretty soon after starting, and they've outsourced things like listing to them or order fulfillment. That's a little bit more risky because there's no guarantee that it's going to be worth it in the beginning. But some people have had really good success doing that. And I understand why, because they're taking everything they can do and they're doubling it or even tripling it sometimes. So it's just really up to you. But in my opinion, you should wait until you really start to feel like you don't have time to or you're starting to not have time to manage it all. Okay, so we have about 4 minutes left. So maybe like one more question, and then we'll kind of wrap things up here. So let me see if there's something I haven't answered before. So Laptop Lifestyle asks kind of a question I haven't quite answered before. It says, how much should we pay a full-time VA? Is $350 a month fair? It'd be great to know. So I know some people pay their VAs a monthly fee, but I actually pay my VAs by the hour, even if they're working a full-time with me. And the reason for that is because a lot of them work more than 40 hours a week. Some work less than 40 hours a week. And I just think the fair thing to do is to pay them by the hour. It's just always the way I've done it. But you can certainly hire VAs for a monthly charge instead of for an per the hour charge. So $350 an hour would be $81 a week at 40 hours a week. So that's about $2 an hour. So that's about the same. So yeah, about $350 a month would be fair if they're working 40 hours a week. So I think that's all the time. I have questions, maybe, unless there's a last minute one. Yeah. So I wanted to thank everyone for coming out, answering all the, asking so many great questions. Has some really good ones this week. I really appreciate that. If you got some value out of this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. It actually really helps get this video out in front of more people. YouTube really likes when there's lots of thumbs up. And consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. That will give you a chance to get alerts every time I go live. Every time I make all my YouTube videos, they'll come up. This week, I should be releasing a video on Thursday or Friday about a new software that I've been trying out with my eBay and Amazon business. That's really cool. If you haven't heard about that one, you might want to check that video out once it's available. Thanks so much, guys, for being here. Remember, I have lots of content in the description of the video, a link to the free eBay dropshipping course, a link to the Dropshipping Titans course if you're serious about this and want to get started today and want to skip the free one. There's the Dropshipping Titans available right there. And of course, a link to the meetup. Thank you, Phil Collins, for the $1.99 super chat. Really appreciate that. And make sure everyone has a super awesome week, and I'll see you guys next week.